I did, Alex.
Okay, so good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for joining us today. It's Alex here, and we got our fabulous Angie on the screen with us. We are going to go ahead and get this party started. We have some fun and exciting resources and information for you all today. As per usual, if you have any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat box. And we will have an open discussion at the end of our presentation to go through any questions or concerns that y'all might have. And I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. So let's go ahead and get started here. Angie, you want to go ahead and take it away?
Yeah, awesome. If you want to start off on the agenda for me, Alex, that would be awesome.
Dun, dun, dun.
Welcome, everybody. I wish I could say this is number whatever, but I really don't know how many of these we've done. I hope you're enjoying the content and that it's giving you some helpful resources. I wanted to focus a bit today on some of the questions we've been receiving, as well as a few stats that I just thought were interesting and kind of tied together. So we're going to look at some stats from Kaiser Foundation. When you try to recall an employee and they refuse to come back, that's been a hot topic, as well as some additional cool guidance that we came across that we thought would be valuable. Alex? So I thought this was interesting. As I said, from the Kaiser Family Foundation, they always seem to be a wealth of resources, and it's a very credible resource as well. But when they did a polling, I believe it was as of the end of April or around the 24th of April, I thought these statistics were kind of interesting. I don't know exactly how many people they polled, but 55% of the number that they polled said that they have lost a job or income since February. 42% say that either they or their spouse or partner experienced a job loss or cut in salary. 29% have fallen behind in paying bills. 56% report that they worry or stress related to the outbreak that's caused them to experience at least one negative effect. So I thought these were interesting. I actually kind of thought it would be a little bit higher than these report, but they're still exceptionally high. And the reason I wanted to post this out here first and foremost is because despite these numbers, and Alex, go ahead and flip to the next slide for me. I feel like we're seeing, you know, kind of a little bit of hesitation almost from some of our clients and friends that we've heard from that are struggling to get employees back to work. So, you know, a lot of states are starting their phased reopening, and we've talked about that several times. Over the last week or so when we knew this was coming. But one particular question I had raised to me was an employer who obtained a PPP loan, that's your Paycheck Protection Program loan. They were concerned about losing some of the forgiveness because of reduced workforce when they've tried to rehire back employees, because as we know, that's a big reason why folks are applying for this loan, is so they have the funding to bring their workers back and get them back on payroll. But what they're experiencing is a situation where the employee doesn't want to come back. Now, there's a variety of reasons, and we'll take a look at some of those shortly, but a lot of people I know are concerned, or a lot of employers are concerned, you know, well, they may be making more right now on unemployment based on the extra up to $600 a week that they could be getting. So someone else had posed this question to the Small Business Administration. They, of course, went back to the various government parties and are clarifying that if you can show proof proof that you attempted to rehire and recall that employee and the employee refused to come back, you will not be penalized on the forgiveness portion, because if you recall, the forgiveness is based on what your workforce looks like. Is it reduced from prior to coronavirus? So that I thought was good news, and I hope it gives you a little bit of comfort that you're doing your best to try to get people back as quickly as you can. I know we all want to get as close to back to normal as possible. But one caveat with this is documentation, and we're going to dive a bit deeper into that in the upcoming slides. Alex? So let's talk about some of the steps that you need to be aware of and what you should be looking at when it comes to an employee refusing to come back to work. So whether it's a furlough or a layoff, if they don't want to come back to work when you're telling them that they can be coming back to work. Something to keep in mind here is several states, and a few that I found today, Iowa, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Vermont, they have spots out electronically out on their websites that you can essentially go out there and notify them that you've made a recall offer and the employee has declined. Because at the end of the day, if it's a recall offer and, barring any other kind of unusual circumstances, the state governments don't want to continue paying unemployment when they have a legitimate offer to come back to work. And that's always kind of been the guidance with unemployment, is they've got to be looking for a job. Well, we know that with coronavirus and everything going on with the enhancements that they've made to unemployment, is that employees don't have to be looking for another job. However, if you're offering their job back, the DOL and the states are recognizing that and certainly want to know about it. In the event that your state doesn't have a specific spot out on their website to notify them, you'll certainly want to notify them whenever those weekly unemployment claims come in. So I put out here the DOL guidance, and I put it in quotes and dropped in here the link to go right to that Q&A. Now, after the webinar, as you know, Alex always is wonderful to send out a copy of the slide deck and any other fun and exciting things that I've talked about during our presentation. I know I always post the links in there, but I did pull out about 4 really good pieces because I don't want to spend our entire time talking about those, but I want to have those resources in your hands. So hopefully that'll help. So some steps for you as the employer. And keep in mind, I've researched a variety of legal websites, so attorney websites, SHRM, some other HR platforms, a lot of things to try to help, keep you guys in line with what is going to work best. So essentially, first and foremost, is you want to send either a certified letter or some sort of letter that you can track that it was delivered. And you want that letter to contain the details of what coming back to work looks like. So some of the recommendations are, include a welcome back message. I really feel that a lot of folks are ready to get back to normal, get back to work, and they want something positive. And your welcome back message is certainly going to be something positive for them. You certainly want to outline any details of any changes that are being made, any new protocols that you put in place, things that are going to help them to feel more confident and secure coming back, that you guys have, done everything that you are supposed to be doing with regard to your state guidance, your state health department guidance, CDC guidance, as far as making the workplace safe. And then whatever responsibilities those employees are going to have, if they're going to need to be wearing a mask, that they need to call in if they're feeling sick or have a temperature over 100.4, things like that. You want to lay all that out. And then certainly provide your contact information, phone number, email, so that if they have questions when they receive the letter, that they know who to call. And then it doesn't hurt to follow up after that letter's been delivered to them to give them a call. Alex? An interesting alternative approach that I found by the firm I listed here, and certainly I've got their link to this. I thought this was kind of interesting that the site says some employers prefer the carrot versus the stick approach. So, you know, this is something that may be useful to you, or it may not, but these are just some additional things that this particular firm put out as some suggestions on, you know, helping to ease them back into work. Now, again, this is not something required, just some options to throw out for you guys to look at as an alternative approach when recalling employees. Alex? So when it comes to reopening requirements, and these three pieces are going to be provided to you by Alex when she sends the thank you, because it's literally list by state of when you should be taking employee temperatures and what that looks like, whether employees need to be wearing face coverings, and a variety of other return to work protocols, again, by state. Now, when she sends you these, they're by state, but keep in mind, some states also have particular city, municipality, additional guidance. So we know that states can have a variety of different hotspots within, that not the entire state falls under a hotspot. So please be sure to check what your state is doing with regard to these three items. It's very important. Now, when we talked a minute ago about that return recall type of verbiage and information, we do have a template that we would be happy to share. Should you like a copy of that, just let us know. I just pulled it down. I've not tweaked it yet, but I'll be reviewing it later today and getting it ready for publication. So with that, I hope you find some value in that. Certainly the links, they'll be accessible when you get a copy of the slide deck later today. I found all of that information really valuable, so I hope you do as well. And with that, as always, we want to kind of, you know, only give you a few minutes, 15 minutes of our chatter and things that we found interesting. We want to certainly have time for you all to ask questions. Now, keep in mind, at any time during the week, outside of our normally scheduled visits here, you can still utilize our Q&A microsite. Don't hesitate to go out there and utilize it. It's still open. We'll probably keep it open for the month of May. We'll take kind of a pulse on what's going on in the world towards the end of May, and we'll let you know if we're going to close that down or leave it open for a little bit longer. So with that, I see that we have one question. All right, let's take a look. Will we be discussing the confusion around federal COBRA SEP's claims extensions released last week under national emergency period versus public health emergency? Thank you. That's a detailed request, and absolutely, Alex will jot that down for me, and we can certainly look at covering that on next week's. Any other questions, Alex, that you received perhaps privately?
I haven't gotten any other questions. Anybody, if you have any questions, either pop on video or you're welcome to unmute yourself. I know we have quite a few people on today, so please, please, please ask us questions. Let us know what's going on, what we can help you with. And even if you think we might have gone over it before, if you're having the question, somebody else is as well. So let's hear it.
Yeah, definitely. And certainly, please check back to the DOL website at least weekly. Their Q&A area is still growing and expanding. So they are still getting questions in and replying to those. So gosh, let me take a quick peek here.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Awesome, hi.
So if someone is taking intermittent FCCRA leave for childcare, and it's an hour or so a day because they have restricted childcare available, does the employer track that daily, or do they track it as a cumulative total for the week?
That's a great question. I would normally track something based on how many hours per day, which you can then do on a weekly basis, especially if it's a fixed schedule. You know, whatever's going to work best for you to make sure that, you know, they've got the right amount of hours. Now, I will say there's a new question asked recently, and I'm trying to pop that up really quick, about the concept of intermittent leave. Okay, so is this, for whoever was just talking, is this the FMLA expansion or the sick leave that they're in currently?
The FMLA expansion.
Okay, cool. I just want to touch. Okay. Yeah, okay, cool. I don't think that's anything different than what we've had before. Perfect. So yeah, you know, we generally record things as they occur. But if you have a, you know, if this employee has a pretty set schedule, then you can record it weekly, how many hours are they used each week.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And it looks like we've got a few questions coming in here.
Yeah, we've got a couple coming in here. Are you looking at them? I can't see your face, Angie.
I'm sorry. Hi. My intent face. There I am. Okay, let me take a look here. Client wants to bring people back to the New York office and require antibody testing. That's also a good one. We will jot that down. And if you could provide me where in New York your client is, because most likely things are going to be different in the city versus the outlying areas. And we can take a look at that. I did not see anything specific about antibody testing in my research today and yesterday. Next one, we've been working remotely since March 16th by governor's orders to close schools in Michigan. Once the order is lifted, we recall employees to their offices and they refuse to physically come in. And then, you know, this is really one of the biggest questions I've had, and in a variety of ways, because there are so many different reasons why folks are not wanting to come back to work. My recommendation at this point is I would talk to them and determine why. You know, is it something about their health? You know, are they of one of those risk categories? Now, again, you want to be aware of, you know, HIPAA laws and privacy laws and things like that, but it's absolutely okay to, you know, ask those questions. If it's just a generalized fear that they're afraid of getting the virus in general and, you know, they're not really at any high risk and, you know, things like that, then, you know, you may have a little room to work there. So certainly try to get the employee to talk to you about what their fear is or what their concern is, you know, because it could be one of those situations where, you know, there's another type of leave that can be done, or you may need to request information from the physician, you know, and certainly conveying to the employee what you've done in the building to, you know, really make sure that you're taking care of that, you're safeguarding the work environment and, things like that. And hopefully that'll alleviate their fear and get them back to work. Now, in lieu of any specific information in your state I don't have in front of me, that would be my best guidance now. Alex, I don't know where we're at on that. You want to find me the next one?
Yeah. What are your thoughts on using a return to work risk waiver / agreement? Should this be something used for employees returning back to work when offices reopen?
I think that it's always a good idea to do anything that provides you documentation. But when we're talking about a work risk waiver, I guess I'm not exactly sure where we're going with that. If it's something like a hold harmless agreement, that probably wouldn't hold up. But I think certainly the request for them to come back to work, that recall notice and all of those pieces, yeah, absolutely. You want to send that in the mail, you want it in writing, you want to keep that in the file, you want to document the conversation you may have with them after that, all of those good things. Now, if you want to provide me a little bit more detail on what you're referring to specifically with a work risk waiver, then I can possibly address that.
That question was from Megan. Megan, can you unmute yourself and give us some more clarity so we can give you a full answer? Let's see if I can
Or feel
find
free
her.
to type it in.
Or you can type it too. Oh, here she is.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, hi. Okay, so on another webinar that I did, they were talking about some sort of like risk waiver in case an employee comes back and say like they can't blame sort of the office for being sick or if something happens. So I didn't quite understand what they were trying to get at and if it was even going to be binding, I don't really know. I'm not sure exactly what they mean by risk waiver in a way, but that's what they sort of said. So I just didn't know if you had any thoughts on that or if you've heard anything.
Thank you. That would almost lead me to believe that it's a situation of workers' comp. Essentially if, and I know this, I've talked to my husband about this, who is a commercial insurance guru in my house. The concept of if an employee comes down with the virus and they blame the employer, what does that look like? And, all of those kind of things. It's very difficult unless you're in a healthcare provider type of environment that it would probably be pretty obvious that you got it from, the work, the hospital, or whatever. But traditional workplaces, it probably would be more challenging to be able to contact trace that. I really don't think it would be wise to try to do that type of risk waiver, and as I said earlier, it almost feels like a hold harmless. I would talk to an attorney in your state about that, but I would be highly suspect if that could even hold up.
Right, exactly. It doesn't seem like it would be binding anyway. So, yeah.
I wouldn't think so either. And especially since, it's going to be challenging to prove anyway if, they contracted the virus at their place of employment or at the grocery store. I would seek some legal guidance on that. I wouldn't imagine.
Angie, I wonder if like something like that would be like just verifying that they have like some sort of form to verify that they haven't been out of the state for more than 30 days and that they're not sick, and just saying, that kind of waiver, and be able to have that and use that if something tries to happen. I mean, that would be the only thing I could think of.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly some guidance you want to give your employees who have been gone. Now, some states still have self-quarantine orders if you travel to certain other areas. Just be real familiar with what your state is doing and requiring so that, you'll know what those rules look like. I would caution you on asking too many personal questions to employees. I can take a look and see if there's any specific guidance from the powers that be on what you can ask or, kind of require of your employees. It's a scary situation because, even those places that require temperatures to be taken before you can enter the office, we all know there are folks out there that have zero symptoms, and so it's a little sticky situation. But we can see what guidance is out there on what questions you can and cannot ask. Okay.
I'm on mute, sorry. It says, all right, I got another one and it was sent to me privately, so I'm gonna go ahead and read it though. We had an employee who was laid off due to lack of work. In turn, he had orders from his doctors not to work due to being at risk for COVID-19 and another health issue. Got a call from an attorney asking if this employee was active, to which I answered no. The attorney asked if the employee was inactive due to COVID-19, to which I answered yes. We do not want to bring this employee back to work and want to make his layoff permanent layoff, but we are fearful of being at risk of legal issues. What would you advise?
Okay, read me the beginning part of that.
Had an employee who was laid off due to lack of work. In turn, he had orders from his doctor not to work due to being at risk for COVID-19 due to another health issue.
Okay, so he was laid off prior to COVID or because of lack of work due to COVID? If that is a yes, you've laid him off, he can certainly be applying for unemployment. The whole concept of work or telework, there has to be work for the employer to do. And we know that that's not always the case, that there's not work to do when, your business may be dependent on other people's businesses. And when they're down, we're all down. So I think it would be wise to, especially since there are other health issues, you also want to be cognizant of age rules and things like that. I would consult with a specific labor law attorney, one that practices employment law, and just make sure that the layoff can remain as a permanent layoff, and based on what your state allows as far as right to work rules and things like that. But it always worries me when we talk about someone who has health issues and you get into ADA and all kinds of other legal ramifications that can tie together. I would certainly recommend that you consult with a labor law or employment law attorney.
He gave us some clarification here. He was laid off due to lack of work due to COVID. We now have work, but don't want to bring him back due to previous attitude issues.
Okay. I think it's probably quite possible that it's fine. I couldn't say with 100% certainty with all those different factors in the climate today, and there are too many laws that intersect with that particular scenario. I would certainly check with an employment law attorney to be safe, because you don't want to end up in litigation. If you have to pay a few bucks to get their legal guidance, I would recommend.
And then Nelson just said in California, it's been approved by our governor last night to allow employees to file a workers' comp claim against the employer.
Okay. Claim for what?
I'm assuming they're talking about the return to the risk waiver agreement.
Okay. It's interesting. This, as I mentioned earlier, I had this conversation with my husband before, that if one of your employees comes down with the virus, is that a workers' comp claim? And his guidance to me was, it can be submitted and it should be submitted, but that doesn't necessarily mean it'll get paid as a workers' comp claim. There if you've ever dealt with a workers' comp claim, you know, there are a lot of things that they have to research and investigate to determine if it's truly, you know, the case. It's not nearly as simple as, you know, I was at work and I broke my leg at work. You know, that's far easier to, you know, substantiate, where something like this that's literally invisible. But that's interesting, and thanks for letting me know. I will pull California info since they just approved something last night. Cool. All right. Looks like we are out of questions, and we managed to keep it to a half hour today.
Yay.
But thank you for your presentation and your questions. We've got some great stuff to research and unpack for you next week. Awesome. Alex, you want to close us out?
Yeah. So again, thank you everybody for joining us. Please, 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 if you have any questions, reach out to us and let us know. Hopefully you all signed up via the RSVP link so that I can have who was here. And I will make sure everybody who is here gets a follow-up email. You should get one before this evening. If you do not, please shoot me an email to make sure that you get all of the content that we're sending out. Again, we are going to see you next week on Thursday, same time, same place. We have some interesting questions that I think we're going to go over for you guys. And if you have anything in the meantime that you would like us to address or kind of look into for you, please let us know. We're here to support you guys, and we always like those brain teasers. So thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Bye.